Alright guys, welcome back to Formula 1 news. The updates continue ahead of pre-season testing. Some teams already on their way to Barcelona, but what fuels will they be using in their cars? Reports have it today these new 100% sustainable fuels are so complicated they won't even be ready in time for the pre-season test, and many teams might even be using fossil fuels in their engines. That raises major questions on what the reliability is going to be like, especially when their engines are properly run on these fuels for real, and especially Shell and Ferrari. Shell might be very advanced in their biofuels, but the consistency is currently causing major concern. Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. This is a teaser of the Red Bull livery. This is, it's going to be unveiled in about 8 or 9 hours time from when you guys are watching this over in Detroit, Michigan. This is a teaser they put out today, Red Bull, of the new livery. So we can see a little bit of it. We can see the front wing and we have a few pixels to work with. We can see that the Red Bull is on a white background compared to what it has previously been, right? If we look at, recent seasons such as this, obviously it's a bit blurry, but you get what I'm saying, right? This has been the livery we've grown accustomed to in recent years. This is the teaser the Red Bull put out today with this on the front wing. We can see a little bit as well towards the back of the car. We can see the bull on the ends, kind of what's going on here. But yes, that is what we have for now. There's probably a few more pixels in this version actually where we can see what the front wing is going to look like. Who knows what they're going to unveil, but Red Bull Racing and Racing Bulls, they will unveil their liveries tonight, presumably on a stock standard 2026 looking car. I guess time will tell what they actually unveil, but are we going to go back to something like this classic Red Bull livery? Are we going to go back to something with the purple kind of infinity days on the side? Okay, it's not going to be infinity anymore, but you know what I'm saying. I'd like to go that route. I think that we will see a departure from what's been seen in recent years. How much so, that does remain to be seen. Now, speaking of liveries and sponsors, there's actually quite a lot of drama lately on this front, and it's nice to have these rivalries back in play. We know that I've discussed in recent days Audi versus Mercedes at some point hopefully will be a nice rivalry. We know that Audi have been very forthright with saying, look, we are the real German team, we are going to do it properly type thing. We'll see on that front. But Revolut, who are the new title sponsor of Audi, they are talking about marketing, and they actually call out Ferrari specifically here. Ferrari HP, Ferrari, whatever it is. No offense, brand identity is very important, but I think what HP and Ferrari have done to their cars is not good from a design perspective. How can you put blue on a red car? That is not good. So, I don't know if we got a picture in the replies here. Okay, that's not quite right. But you know what I'm saying anyway. You got HP on the rear wing, especially nowadays, you've got that big white slant with the HP logo on it. Look, I agree, the HP logo doesn't look great on the Ferrari, but look, at the end of the day, is this being a successful approach? Because you've got Revolut and Audi talking about HP, right? So that's when everyone says, oh my God, the HP logo looks so bad on the Ferrari, doesn't it? Here we are talking about it again. Even more exposure for HP. If HP was on the car and it was black, and it looked much prettier, I'm sure it would. If it was just the HP logo in white or black, it would suit the Ferrari red so much better. People would love it. But who would talk about it? It's like nobody cares. It's another sponsor on the car. Because it's blue and obnoxious, you've even got Audi and Revolut talking about it. So sounds to me like HP have done the right thing, but that's all my perspective on it. The other drama is between Ford and Cadillac. So there's another nice rivalry brewing right now in Formula 1 between those American components. And this is what some of the individuals had to say. This is Dan Tauris, who's the CEO of Cadillac, who says it's not even close, as in the Cadillac relationship having their own team and the Ford relationship with Red Bull Racing. Now, there's a big debate on this. Are Ford back in Formula 1? Look, they're not providing Ford Cosworth engines, at least certainly not yet, but they are involved with the Red Bull powertrains process. They are an engine partner. It's not 100% clear how involved Ford really are. There have been some questions on how much Ford have really impacted the electrical side and the ICE side of the Red Bull powertrains project. It's a little bit difficult to say, but, they didn't do the Porsche partnership at the end because Porsche, we believe, wanted to take on a significant ownership percentage in the team. Horner wasn't very happy about that. That deal then, as a result, fell through. But Ford have come along. It's Red Bull Powertrains Ford. There will be some Ford branding going on here. but Red Bull will still be Red Bull. I think people aren't really going to consider it to be Red Bull Ford precisely, certainly not yet anyway. So Cadillac say, well, look, we're doing it properly, right? We're an actual team. We are coming in. It's not just a marketing deal. Dan Towris says Ford, they're just doing nothing. It's minimal impact. It's a marketing deal. GM is an equity owner. However, Ford don't see it like that. Bill Ford says, if anything looks like a marketing effort, that does. They're using a Ferrari engine. They're not running a Cadillac engine. I don't know if they have any GM employees on the race team, he says. So, yeah, just nice to see a little bit of spice, right? Like, we've got a little bit of rivalry going on here between Ford and Cadillac. Look, are they going to be that competitive on track? Most people think Cadillac won't be. And to be fair to Cadillac, they have said that in the next few years, they will be making their own engine. It will be a General Motors engine. It's only Ferrari for now. So, to me, it's 1-0 to Cadillac, but in terms of this rivalry, but we shall see on track whether it could be a different story, of course, and how involved Ford continue to get over time. But it's kind of nice to see a little bit of rivalry back in Formula One, especially between some new teams on the grid, to add a little bit of spice to the Grand Prix season. Now, quickly on McLaren, Pato O'Ward is IndyCar driver for them and primary reserve driver, but they're also bringing on board Leonardo Fornaroli as a reserve driver to kind of share responsibilities here. He will be third test and development driver for the team. So, pretty cool to see that he was the F2 champion from last year, officially joining McLaren. We've seen a number of big names come into the McLaren program. You guys may recall when Alex Dunn was part of McLaren earlier this season. Red Bull wanted him, certainly Helmut Marko wanted him as part of the Red Bull Academy. That never happens. Marko was maybe fired as a result. Alex Dunn, as a result, is in a more precarious position than he previously was. But Fornaroli now, it seems, is McLaren's new golden boy. We'll see if they need him, of course, in coming years, and we shall see if Norris and Piastri retain their strong relationship as a duo, or whether next year will break that apart. Speaking of McLaren, they're powered by a Mercedes engine. A lot of questions continue on the power units today, certainly the fuel component as well. It's one of these pieces that we've been talking about quite often on the channel that is very relevant, the fuel this season, but it's something not commonly discussed because we don't often talk about fuel. It's kind of considered to have been the same, really, with all the teams over the last few years. Certainly not the case from next year and beyond. Now, Johnny Herbert said that Mercedes did have a problem with their engine. When they put it in the car for the first time, it didn't work. It didn't turn on. So, look, even Mercedes, the expectation is their engine is going to be very strong, probably the class of the field in that regard. But they are still, of course, going to be open to reliability problems, to technical failures. It would be a massive surprise if they don't have at least some, at least some technical issues as the season goes on during tests, etc., etc. They may be well positioned, but it doesn't mean that Mercedes will be infallible. And look, we no longer have the previous point system from like the 80s or whatever, when they used to only reward points for the championship from the best races. So you could get away with some unreliability. Not the case today. Often championships can be decided by unreliability, and that will be a critical component of the season. The other point on the Mercedes engine, again, it's very difficult to say how relevant this will be right now. We talked about it yesterday. We're going to talk about it again today. This compression ratio trick with the engine. It's been all the rage in recent weeks. This compression ratio trick, Mercedes might be using. Nobody else has it. It's going to give them another, I think the original number was 13 horsepower. Let's just round it up to 15 horsepower or whatever, if they were able to generate more power in that way. Now, of course, that would mean an extra 3/10 a lap, 3/4 a lap was the rumour. But also, it gives other advantages, because if your engine's generating more power, it means you can generate more electricity for the battery, you can keep the battery at a higher level. Look, can you keep the battery at 100%? That's a bit of a stretch, but can you generate more energy? And as Dekesa mentions in the replies, actually, this is a tweet we'll get to in a second, Dekesa in the reply says that yes, if Mercedes do have a compression edge, there will be way more than 3/10 to be gained from it. So that's interesting, because as we've seen in recent days, it might not be they've gone to 18-1 from 16-1. Maybe they're not getting that much advantage. But even if they're going from 16.1 to 16.5-1, and they're gaining another, let's call it 5 horsepower over the other teams, that 5 horsepower is exacerbated in its impact based on the other implications of a stronger engine. That's the bottom line. As I say, when the season gets underway, we might not be talking about this. It might be a footnote, but of the preseason, it's been the key talking point. Now, this is the image I did want to get to, because these images today, and I think people have looked at the actual metadata behind these pictures and shown that, yes, these are pictures taken today, I believe, it seems, on the way to Barcelona. Here's a big Aston Martin truck, and it appears to be en route to Barcelona. So, very interesting. Obviously, today's the 15th of January. The test starts on the 26th. I doubt there's going to be a car in the back of this thing, but who knows, right? Maybe people are saying, oh, the car's going to be a tractor, it's going to be a truck for the start of the season. This is what they're going to be rolling up with. But this looks like it was, just outside San Sebastian. So, yes, on the way to Barcelona, some of the teams, Aston Martin seem to be among them, means that they're at least going to set up some sort of equipment ahead of their run, which means they presumably will make it after recent rumours that some teams might not. But what about this fuel debacle? And this is the big development of today. There's kind of two big developments. We'll get to the other one in a second. But this is the major update, really. Biofuels, e-fuels, what's going on? So in recent days, we have talked about the sustainable fuels for this new season. Firstly, they're incredibly costly. A full tank will set you back 13,000 euros. It's actually remarkable. Now, right now, sustainable fuels in the mainstream world are gaining good progress in their development. They're becoming quite relevant, actually, and they will be in future years. The issue here is the 100% sustainability part. I think it's quite possible right now to create fuels that are, 75, 80% sustainable, but with a fossil component in there, the engines tend to prefer it. It's much, much cheaper to do it that way. To create fully 100% sustainable fuels currently is very costly, but this is kind of what we do Formula One for, to push the envelope, to push that innovation, and hopefully it'll be very important for the future of humanity in the long run. However, the teams are running into problems. Not only is it currently extremely expensive, but there are other issues as well. So, as we have said in recent days, Ferrari are using the biofuel approach. They're using more natural waste, more organic materials to generate the fuels. That's perfectly allowed as long as it's sustainable in the eyes of the regulators. That's fine. Other teams, Petronas and Aramco, are focusing instead on synthetic fuels. I'll link the entire Auto Racer article down below, but this I thought was the most intriguing little segment. So that's the idea. Shell, Ferrari, they have a biofuel, more natural approach. The other teams, generally speaking, are going for a more synthetic approach. As we discussed probably a couple of weeks ago now, the rumour had it Shell may have an advantage in this sense initially because the more organic compounds are more what we're used to in terms of engine design and how the, let's say, combustion of that will actually work. And the feeling was that Shell actually might enjoy an early advantage. Ferrari might enjoy an early advantage from this fuel. It might even make up for the tenths they're losing to Mercedes on the engine front itself. Shell believes it has a significant technological advantage in the formulation of biofuels as well as in the additives front. But the difficulties are in creating fuels with consistent characteristics because there's tons of different feedstocks that they're using. All of them have very slightly different molecules, different sensitivity to oxidation, different sensitivity to temperature. How can you run an engine consistently with that in mind? The synthetic fuels might not be as good, at least for now, but they are theoretically more consistent because it's just the same molecule. You're not talking about this natural processes. So apparently, as a result of this, Shell has encountered some difficulties. According to what Auto Racer have learned, one of the main problems has been the variability in composition between the various batches produced. Some perform extremely well, others less so. And these differences are critical when offering it or when operating at the limits that we have in Formula One. So this is very interesting. This characteristic has caused Ferrari to experience some significant problems on the test benches, so much so that they have imposed much more rigorous quality control, which has partially resolved the problem, but not led to a total solution. So this is a big development, really, that the other teams, it might not be perfect, but they at least have consistent fuel. Whereas Ferrari, they may turn up to the season, they put one tank in and they're flying, and then they put a different tank in for the next weekends. The fuel isn't as strong. So look, this is the risk reward, it seems, of what they're doing. but it could be a problem for Ferrari. Again, when you have such downside, there's also possible upside as well. They put in a good tank, which has all the right compounds and components and molecules or whatever. They might be absolutely flying, but reliability then becomes a question, right? Like if the compounds and the molecules are different, as they say, they've been running into issues on the testing bench because of this variability in fuel, and it's going to be costly. There's no doubt about that as well. Now, with all that said, they're not ready to go. And this might be true for Shell, but seemingly true for other teams as well. And, as is pointed out in the replies here, this is going to be it's going to be absolute cinema this year. Whether that's for good or for bad, that's a good question. But there's another article today that suggests the teams are getting the leeway to use fuel that actually isn't 100% sustainable in preseason testing because it's just not ready to go. They're not well prepared enough yet to actually make this happen. And and it was actually mentioned later on in the Auto Racer article as well, that the teams may be using fully fossil fuels or certainly some sort of combination of the two, because the manufacturers aren't quite ready yet with their sustainable compounds. And that's going to be a big deal because we're going to go to Barcelona and test these engines on fuels that are not homologated, that will not be the final fuels used for the actual season. So, that probably is true for Barcelona. According to the reports of today, that will be the case in Barcelona, that some teams, maybe all teams, will use fuels that the FIA are saying, all right, guys, whatever, use it for this, for the main season. We're going to make sure we are on this fully sustainable fuels. But what about the next test? What about Bahrain 1? What about Bahrain 2? They're going to be using fully sustainable then? Will they be ready by then? Because if they're not, are we turning up to Melbourne using fully sustainable fuels for the first time in these new engines? That's going to be a recipe for absolute chaos, right? So, yes, the chaos will continue. The other big development is on which teams are ready and which teams aren't. We've talked in recent days on Aston Martin. There is a little bit of further talk here about Ferrari, especially because of this fuel delay, the test benches and stuff like that. Apparently, passing the crash test has been a bit of an issue for them. Again, if you're not pushing the boundary in this regard, you're probably doing it wrong. They're a bit tight for time on assembly. The engine hasn't been started up yet, but they're keeping things a little bit low profile. However, Aston Martin reportedly going to be roughly 10 to 15 kilograms over the weight limit. This, I think, should be expected for most teams, to be honest. We saw this at the start of 2022. The weight limit has been reduced, the minimum weight limit, but teams getting there first year is going to be a big challenge. Aston Martin might be a bit behind the curve anyway. They had to redesign a lot after Newey discovered their wind tunnel was not correlating properly last summer. That was the talk of yesterday. So they're probably going to be a bit behind the curve. The question really was, could anyone actually reach the limits, right? Was it possible for anyone to get down there? John Noble says that for Aston Martin's perspective, they have the potential, but there's not much expectation that this is going to be the year. Maybe Alonso can win a race this year when they bring the upgrades in the summer. But there's not much expectation that they're going to take that much of a leap this season. Could there be, however, other surprises early doors? Because Auto Racer are also discussing that one team has hit the minimum weight threshold. Now, this is actually very impressive to me, given all the changes. I didn't expect really any team to be there, to be honest. But apparently one team is there. And if you're 15 kilograms heavier, that can be 3, 4, probably half a second a lap, I would say, in many situations, especially now because there's lower downforce. The weight penalty actually makes more of a difference, I would argue, than it previously did. Maybe not massively so, but it's a big deal. If you can be 15 kilograms lighter than another car, that's a massive deal. That will make up for a lot of aerodynamic inefficiency. Apparently, one team has made it. Now, which team is that, you may ask? The rumour had it's not Alpine, and the rumour now has it's actually Audi. So, here we go again. You guys may remember at the start of 2022 when it was Sauber, of course at the time Alfa Romeo Sauber, who they were at the weight limit. They were the lightest car of any. This is why Bottas was he 5th in Miami, right? He had a great few results at the start of that season. That fell away quite quickly, as we know, but a strong start could be possible. And if Audi, look, we know that they've had a load more development time than some of the other teams. They may be a bit of a surprise at the start of the new season. There's not much confidence in their engine, to be fair. But look, if their engine is 5/10 a lap slower, but their car is, let's say, 15 kilograms lighter, then that's probably enough to make up for the difference. So the bottom line is, expect Audi to at least be something of a threat in certain conditions. You might expect that in certain corner types, when the weight is, when more sluggish cars will be very slow through like slow chicanes or something, they might gain a serious advantage in that case. Again, it's many moving parts. Do they have the downforce to actually take advantage of the lower weight? That's also another good question. But exciting to hear, really, that there's reason to be excited about multiple teams. You've got Aston Martin, all that potential promise, but nobody really knows. Rumours that it's not going to work out for them until at least the summer break. Williams, who knows how much progress they've made, kind of quiet behind the scenes, but they've got a Mercedes engine. And then you've got Audi, apparently, with a substantial edge. I mean, if we're talking Mercedes gaining 15 horsepower or something, 3, 4, 5 tenths a lap potentially, Audi might be gaining the same thing here with the car being lighter. No, look, that's not going to last forever, because other teams will get down there. But the point is that for the start of the season, they could well be a team to watch. So massively intrigued to your thoughts in the comments below. This is Eric Van Haren out there in Michigan, getting ready for the Red Bull reveal, which, as I say, will happen later on today. And we will be talking tomorrow about everything that has been unveiled. So very much intrigued to your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care. And I'll see you next time.